Good morning to everyone joining us. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Thank you so very much. Welcome to the second episode of MudoZangl's Deep Dive Series. We're excited that you are joining us. And if you can prompt other people as well to join, we'll be very grateful. We'll be starting exactly at 10:05 to give room for other people to join. So welcome. Thank you to everyone joining. Thank you so much for joining. We're so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the second episode of MudoZangl's Deep Dive Series. We have a panel of amazing people here, and there's a lot to talk about, a lot to share. We hope you'll stay with us till the end. Please share the link with others so they can join. Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the second episode of MudoZangl's Deep Dive Series, where we'll be discussing unleashing value and agility with integrated planning. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. Thank you so much, everyone. We recognize and are very excited that you're here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for registering. Thank you for joining us. Today is going to be, promises to be a very interesting day. My name is Ibilola. I'm your usher. I'm ushering you into this panel session. Thank you and welcome to MudoZangl's Deep Dive Series. We will be starting at exactly 10:05 a.m. So please hang on. We're just waiting for others to join. Just those people that are usually like a minute or two late. Thank you so much. Welcome, welcome. As you can see, we have a panel of incredible speakers here. They have a lot to share about the experiences with integrated planning, their journeys, and I think that we all will benefit from their wealth of experience. Thank you so much. One more minute and we'll be starting. Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much to everyone. We will be starting at exactly 10:05 a.m. Our moderator today will be Lester, yes, who is the CTO of Asheram Energy Limited, which is the upstream company of Sahara. Thank you so much for joining. It is 10:05 a.m. and welcome to everyone, to our attendees and the panelists. Welcome to the second episode of MudoZangl's Deep Dive Series. titled Beyond Silos, Unleashing Value and Agility with Integrated Planning. I am not going to say very much because we have a very capable and experienced moderator today, Les, who I'm going to hand over in a minute, next slide, please, so I can. Lester is a seasoned petroleum engineering leader with over 35 years in the oil and gas industry. He began his E&P career with Shell, serving in Nigeria, the Netherlands, Oman, and the USA. Over the past 15 years, he has held senior leadership roles at BP America, Kuwait Oil Company, Karn E&P India, BHGE USA, and Energia Nigeria as MDCU. He is credited with several industry firsts, including the first TAML 6S multilateral ESS installation in a horizontal well and integration of swellable packers with ICVs in a five-leg ML well. He's renowned for driving excellence in WRFM, production optimization, petroleum economics, activity planning, cost leadership, stakeholder engagement, and digital transformation. He's currently CTO at Asharami Energy, a Sahara upstream company, where he oversees 9 assets in the Niger Delta, focusing on production growth, gas monetization, energy transition, and sustainability. He's a member of SPE and AICHE, and holds a first-class degree from the University of Benin and an MBA from Colorado Technical University, USA. So I'm going to hand over to Les Stay now, and he will moderate this session. Welcome to everyone once again. Lester, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ibilola, for that introduction and for welcoming all our esteemed attendees to this session. Just want to confirm, quick check. I hope you can all hear me properly.
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So again, good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the second in the series of the MudoZangl Deep Dive Series. This is following the successful inaugural seminar that was held some weeks ago where we talked about carbon accounting. So we're excited to be delving into the critical role that integrated planning plays in our businesses today. In today's complex and rapidly evolving business landscape, organizations increasingly recognize the need to break down the silos and adopt a holistic approach to planning. This webinar aims to provide valuable insights and actionable strategies for professionals across various sectors, focusing on the practicalities, benefits, and applications of integrated planning, which I'll call IP from now on, but don't mix that with intellectual property, particularly within engineering, procurement, and construction. And some of the war stories may go outside of these areas, including corporate planning. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers and panelists today. And they will share their knowledge and real-world experiences with us. And when they are done, we get into a panel session. And after that, the audience will be welcome to an interactive session where you can interact with the audience, ask questions, and we'll give the answers. I'll start quickly with the personal experience on integrated planning, which is actually not related to engineering, procurement, construction, or EP, but this is in an organization that's huge, like where I currently work on the technical section, but we do have a corporate comms department. So here I was planning a strategy session on a certain day, and the corporate comm was planning an industry event where I was supposed to be the keynote speaker on the same day. This is not engineering, but just because there was no integrated planning across the organization, I was expected to be in 2 cities at the same time, full day events. So you can imagine what happens last minute. We have to scramble to find out, oh, which one must I attend? What are the fallbacks and alternative plans, right? So this is just to show that when there are multiple parts in a business, we need to be sure that all the parts talk to each other. You understand who's needed where, what is needed where, why is where supposed to be what it is. And these are the things that we are going to be listening to from our esteemed panelists today. So let's get started. To kick off, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for the day, who will be talking to us on a topic that's very dear to him. Our first speaker is Oladoju Andre. He is a seasoned instrumentation, control, and automation engineer with over 15 years of hands-on experience across Africa's oil and gas landscape. A graduate of electrical electronics engineering from the Ambrose Ali University, he has worked on multiple multi-million-dollar EPC commissioning and operations projects for major oil companies. He holds certificates in control systems automation and hydrocarbon measurements from Rockwell Automation University, South Africa, and the Juice Coach, UK, respectively. Andre's track record includes delivering high-impact solutions on both offshore and onshore assets across Africa and beyond. He is currently the Chief Technical Officer for Monserrado and serves on the board of Deerfield Integrated Services Limited, where he drives innovation and execution in complex technical environments. Let's welcome Andre for his topic.
All right, thank you very much, Leslie. Microphone check. I don't know if everyone can hear me clearly.
Can.
Yes, okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, so introducing integrated planning. I believe to first understand integrated planning, we need to understand why it is needed, right? So what's the foundation for cohesive planning, which is what integrated planning actually is. So to truly grasp integrated planning, it is essential for us first to understand and appreciate the chaotic nature of project planning and implementation. So recognizing the complexities and the unpredictable elements involved in managing projects provides us a foundation for wanting to develop more effective and cohesive planning strategies. So that is what integrated planning actually does for us. So I work for Monserrado Investments Limited. So Monserrado is a project development consulting firm where we help our clients in emerging economies to move their project from a concept to bankability and into operations, right? So we focus in the energy sector, in the renewable space. And to deliver those projects, there are a lot of moving pieces. So the process of project delivery, encompasses numerous components. So we start with pre-development activities, such as feasibility studies to understand, the nature of the project. Is the project viable, right? What technology do we need to do? Is it profitable? What are the regulatory requirements? What is the budget, And at this stage is where we also look at selecting the suitable technology to deliver the project. So at this point, it's easy to manage, the multiple departments, in the planning phase. But when the complexity increases is when we get into project execution and implementation in itself, right? So at this point, you're dealing with engineering, you're dealing with procurement, you're dealing with construction, right? And this is where the chaos really begins. So I'll give you an analogy to make it easier to understand. So let's say you're developing a 10,000 barrel per day refinery, right? What you want to do is to get an OEM, so that's the original equipment manufacturer, right? So that will give you the technology required for the project. You would also have another EPC vendor, another engineering, procurement, and construction vendor handling local works. So works like tankage, your pumping stations and the likes. Now, these two vendors are going to have sub-vendors. Those sub-vendors are going to have their own planning tool. Each EPC vendor is going to have his own planning tool. You, the developer, you're going to have your own planning tool, and it becomes challenging and chaotic to synchronize these different plans into one overarching plan for the project. So the challenge there is, how do you coordinate this? How do you coordinate the vendors? How do you align your strategy within your organization, outside of your organization? How do you deal with the regulators? How do you deal with the financiers? You understand? So addressing this challenge has been a problem, not just for a company like Monterado, but I think for the industry at large. And as forward-thinking people, we've been looking for solutions to properly combat these challenges, because the outcome is you lose money, right? The project is not profitable. The project gets delayed. The customer is not happy. You're not able to go into operations, right? So aligning everybody in a way that communication is seamless is key. So what we have tried to do is to ensure that we communicate better, we plan better, we have more meetings. But that in itself is not adequate, right? So while this approach to us has provided some relief, we recognize that our environment and the client's needs are constantly changing. So therefore, it's essential to develop a flexible system that addresses current needs and adapts quickly to future challenges. So we've been looking for a structure, right, that allows you to be agile, that allows you to be adaptable, so that when client needs happen or when they come, right, everybody can pivot at the same time. Everybody gets the communication at the same time. And I'll give you an example, right? We're developing a project in the gas plant space, and we had concluded with the plan, we had the budget, we had the timelines, right? And Trump won the election in America, and Trump implemented tariffs. Now that had a ripple effect into our project. One, we couldn't ship timely because fewer vessels were coming to America because of the tariffs. So there was no space availability for the packages you wanted to ship to Nigeria. It caused cost escalation because the cost of the tariff was now implemented into the project. These are unforeseen conditions we could not have predicted at the time we conceived the project. Nevertheless, it was important that the whole team, not just the procurement department, not just the finance department, is able to pivot and begin to re-strategize to ensure that we are still within limits, we are still within budget to be able to deliver the project to our clients, especially in this climate where everybody is being more customer-centric. So the customer needs is what drives the business. So integrated planning is now needed more than ever, because we're in a fast-paced world. Things are changing very fast. The world has truly become a global village. So whatever happens in the uttermost end of the world has a ripple effect in real time, wherever you may be. So what exactly is integrated planning? So integrated activity planning, also known as integrated planning, is a strategic methodology that involves coordinating various activities, right, within an organization or for a project to achieve common objectives efficiently. So it's a fundamental principle that encompasses goal alignment, effective resource management, stakeholder engagement, adaptability, and ongoing monitoring and evaluation. So with many companies increasingly adopting a customer-centric approach, like I said earlier, as their primary business focus, the importance of integrated planning in today's dynamic environment, it cannot be overstated. So the rapid growth of complexities in project necessitates the use of tools that allow you to plan effectively, allow you to communicate change swiftly, promptly, and across all the silos in your organization and outside your organization to meet the client's ever-evolving need is very key in today's climate. And it can be, just that thin line between success and failure. So that's what integrated planning is about. And as we delve more into this discussion, I'm sure we'll have more understanding of what it entails and what it encompasses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dotun, for that very interesting opening. We'll go on to the next speaker, and we'll then take the war room session together and get into the discussion with the panelists, with the audience. If you have any questions related to what Dotun just talked through, please, this is for the audience. You can send your questions into the chat, and we'll be gathering those as we go through. Welcoming our second speaker today, Mr. Godwin Itama. Godwin brings over 30 years of cross-continental experience in asset development, production operations, and project delivery across Africa, Asia, North America, and the UK. He has led multiple disciplinary teams responsible for planning, execution, and maintenance of both greenfield and brownfield projects in challenging onshore and offshore environments. His deep knowledge of asset integrity and performance optimization has made him a trusted consultant and operations strategist. As a former business improvement lead, Godwin has helped streamline governance structures, implement change management programs, and enhance shareholder value through operational excellence. He holds a mechanical engineering degree from the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, and executive education credentials from Harvard Business School. Godwin also serves as a board member of the African Biosciences Company Limited and is active in sustainable farming and community development. Godwin will be taking us through driving operational precision, IP in operations planning. Let's welcome Godwin to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the intro, Leslie. Can you hear me? I'm checking the mic again because I just switched over.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for the introduction. I currently still work as a consultant also for Golebacha Consulting Company. We look a lot into integrated activity planning. So I will have one pager where I will try to push everything into a summary. Thank you very much, Dotun, for the introduction and the part you've taken so far with integrated planning. That really helps me. So if you're able to share that one pager, I will just dive straight into it. Is that possible? Otherwise, I can go on. Right. So what is integrated activity planning? And this is coming mainly because in Nigeria and in many parts of the world where I have had experiences, it's difficult to plan one's personal life. You can plan your day and then you find out that all the things you plan to do are not just going to happen. So talk less of planning for a company and then talk less of planning for Nigeria, where you have all the challenges from oil theft, security vandalisms, community interruptions, and so on. If it's difficult to share, maybe I should share my screen. Would you want me to do that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so let me just take on this screen, if you will see. Okay, you're okay now? Yeah. All right, so I'll just share my screen. Awesome. Let me know if my screen is being seen. You can see that? Let me see if I can
Yes, it's
maximize
come up
this.
now.
Right. I try to avoid this by asking someone to help. Okay, so what can you see? Are you seeing 2 pages or 1 page?
2 pages.
Oh, no. Okay. So I'll make it as zoom as much as I can. Okay, so if you can see this, what I try to do here is to pick a 1-pager of what we're talking about with planning and how, from my experience, it has been the critical element in success for every oil and gas industry. The first part I would like to emphasize is that from what the two said, it all stems from what the corporate strategy is. I'll give an example. Renaissance, for example, says they want to be the African leading energy company, enabling energy security and industrialization in a sustainable manner. That's a beautiful vision. But of no reality, it cannot be a reality if integrated activity planning is not in place. Because energy security, industrialization, and a sustainable manner, it all boils down to being able to deal with the security challenges, being able to have a plan, both horizontal and vertical. But if you have that together with a long-term plan, which in some companies is called an asset reference plan, others call it integrated activity development plan, together with the functional plans, which has also been mentioned by Dotun. Together with that, you now form an asset-based plan, which supersedes is the operational plan, if you like. This is what each asset will use to run their business on a short term or a medium term or a long term. That is the only plan, no other plan. The functional plan is subsumed into that. The corporate plan is the basis of which this works. And then the asset manager or the asset responsible person chairs and drives this because it has to be visible. It has to be seen as important because all the functional plans are part of it. For it to work, so these critical success factors are critical. One of them is this leadership presence. So the asset manager runs the show. There's one plan. There's no 2 plans. Then activity readiness. You know, we heard about how the tariff can cause a disruption because it wasn't planned for. And if there are items imported or procured or being, you know, we're waiting for that to get into the asset and it's not ready and the functional lead is not ready to share it or he is afraid of sharing bad news. So the readiness can remain green and we all think it's going to happen, but it will not happen. Meanwhile, you may have shut down the plant, you may have caused deferment scheduling. All of this may have been part of what is on ground. So every functions must play their role and they must be able to transparently show readiness as time goes on. The plan last year may not work this year. I've seen that too many times, whether it is in Russia or whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's onshore with Baran or whether it is offshore with Bonga. It doesn't matter. It's the same sequence of challenges. In the colder climate, the challenge is weather and unpredictable weather. In Nigeria, the challenge is unpredictable security intervention with pipeline vandalization. So both challenges have to be addressed and dealt with in planning. And that's a very, very difficult thing to do, but it has been done with some limited successes. And when you have all of this together, then the changes to the plan has to be controlled, because then you will have the sustainable improvement in safety and environment, which is part of a particular company's vision, and be able to reduce your unscheduled and scheduled costs deferment, which eventually will increase your asset value. Now, this is a bit of a summary of the entire picture of when we talk about asset integrity planning. We know the challenges we experience already, and we know the difficulty in planning. And I give examples of, while, for example, in onshore Nigeria, there were a couple of planning that effectiveness. So when you look at what you plan versus what you do, we call it planning effectiveness. We've seen 35%. I don't want to mention companies, but that's the kind of performance we get. But we've also moved from 35% to 70%. And the best experience I have was over 90%. What are the ingredients? Well, how do we get to that point? What are the things that must be in place based on previous learning? And now we even have new tools and technology, which also helps in improving planning beyond 35, 40%, which has been like the average in onshore in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria so far. So we look forward to this conversation. We look forward to how we can unleash our potentials, our value for the asset. And I'll be very glad to take questions. I'll be glad to share examples, case studies, and then we will be able to move on from there. I don't want to take more time in the intro. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Godwin, for building up on the foundation that was laid by Dotun with your experiences and what's possible. If we can add 90% of our baseline by just focusing on one skill, I think that's great. So we'll move on to our next esteemed panelist for today. Welcome, Sophia Weaver. Sophia is a distinguished petroleum engineer and business leader with more than 2 decades of experience in the development and integration of oil and gas assets. She began her energy career at Shell Nigeria, where she held technical roles in well engineering, production technology, and asset development. Her international assignment with Shell E&P in Houston saw her deliver cost-saving innovations in deep-water drilling operations. Sophia has since served in senior leadership roles at First E&P and Walter Smith, managing high-stake operations, P&L responsibilities, and regulatory engagements. She is a recipient of the SPE Regional Award for Completion Optimization and holds degrees in chemical engineering, engineering management from Penn State, and an executive MBA from London Business School. She is also an alumni of the University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainable Leadership. We welcome Sophia Weaver as she takes us through speed, scale, and success, the role of IP in major capital projects. Over to you, Sophia.
Thank you very much, Festy, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, fellow panelists. Good morning to all our attendees. And let me just start by expressing my thanks to MudoZangl. I personally followed the first sets of these webinars and found them very interesting, and I'm really honored to be part of one of these today, speaking to something that is part of my day-to-day work, if you put it that way. So you've obviously heard from my introduction, my engineering background. I will start by saying that these days, I considered myself more of a recovering engineer. And the reason I say that is because I have had to learn the hard way and now more or less live by the principle that not every problem can be solved with an engineering solution. Okay, so we engineers tend to try and apply engineering solutions to problems that are not engineering in nature. And maybe to give a very popular example of that is the world's richest man, and no doubt one of the most, let's say, innovative entrepreneurs of our time, took that principle to the entire government of the United States. And in the process of trying to cut cost or save money, and has more or less ended disastrously. I think that's a prime example of where some integrated planning would have been highly relevant and quite useful. But, I say that because obviously this is more focused in the oil and gas industry. I know not all of our attendees are necessarily engineers, but it's important, especially in capital projects, because the biggest early stage risks we face are not necessarily technical. They actually tend to be more regulatory, commercial, financial, and so on. So ignoring these non-technical aspects early on is one of the fastest ways to delay a project or even entirely destroy it and its economics. Now, again, I'll be taking maybe a less traditional approach here. I'm just going to talk through my introduction, not slides. And I hope that's okay. So a second thing I really want to bring out here is that behavior, systems, and culture are actually very relevant to this topic. And why so? Well, that's because contrary to the principles of traditional economics, where we say that the allocation of resources is based on rational decision-making, we know that's not quite true. We know that decision-making is actually quite riddled with bias and heuristics, right? And we put some of these things in how we approach, our business strategies or even our developments. For instance, we'll say, I used to be a production technologist, we'll say rule of thumb, if something is beyond a certain depth, you're definitely going to need sand control and so on. And those things aren't bad, they are shortcuts. But it also is important to note this because that's, like I said, systemic and cultural element is really relevant to how we bring integrated planning into the picture. And I also say this because I think it was famously Peter Drucker that said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I'm opening on that note because there's a very important principle I want to lay here today, is that integrated planning isn't just a tool or an activity. It's really about a mindset shift, right? So it's breaking the cycle of this cycle of technical isolation and really bringing business, finance, and strategy to the front end. So somebody who used to approach every problem as an engineer, I've now learned that, true success is not defined by those design specs but really how well we frame a project, how well we shape it so that it can be financed, it can be permitted, and it can be executed without friction. So that's what integrated planning delivers. Now, I will be talking mostly about IP in major capital projects. I've worked across, the spectrum, at least of development, both in the front end and in the operations. And I remember when I was in the operations, you would think and you would say, who designed this? Who, what were they thinking? And then you come into the front end and then you kind of start to understand some of the challenges and the things you have to cope with. And a very interesting principle is interesting concept is that of trade-offs. The trade-offs, the value, cost, and risk trade-offs you have to make very early. So why this topic is particularly of interest to me is we are currently developing our modular refinery. And this is where, in this EPC space, a lot of this principle, like I said, mindset shift of integrated planning is coming to bear. Now, also important because in those particularly early stages of the concept, select, and feed stages, that is where key assumptions really get locked in. And up to 70% of life cycle costs are usually committed by the end of feed. So this is where we're making decisions on scope, on configuration, on contracting strategy, on location. And that really gets to determine our flexibility, our cost envelope, and our timeline, really. So integrated planning is crucial because it aims to break those siloed decisions and thinking where the most damage can happen. And really looking to lead projects to be sure that they are bankable and they're permitted and they end up commercially viable. So I'm going to stop that introduction here because I really look forward to the questions and elaborating more on some of the experiences, real world experiences, and how we're applying this in our day-to-day work. And again, thank you to the moderator and fellow panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for that. Building up on where we started with the on introduction, Godwin has showed us what's possible, and you expanded it to going beyond engineering to a mindset shift. I always like that statement by Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I'm still wondering what eats lunch and dinner. We'll get there. So we move on to our next speaker for the day. We welcome Jetemi Etim. He is a multi-skilled energy professional with over 15 years of experience spanning reservoir management, corporate strategy, economics, and stakeholder management. His contributions have directly supported leadership teams in consistently meeting performance targets, particularly within Nigeria's upstream sector. A current registered engineer, Jetemi has a strong academic background in engineering and business, and is actively involved in knowledge sharing and mentoring within industry networks. Known for his analytical depth and collaborative leadership, Jetemi has contributed to projects in gas commercialization, project financing, acquisition and divestment, and Nigerian content development. His ability to connect technical execution with business outcomes makes him a strong voice in the conversation around integrated planning and industry transformation. We welcome Jetemi as he takes us through breaking the disconnect, application of IP in corporate planning. Jetemi, you're welcome, and let's welcome him all.
Thank you, Leslie, and good morning, everyone. Thank you to I'll just like to talk a bit about corporate planning and how it connects in the integrated business planning. So a lot of times we often would have company leadership define the vision of the organization, the goals, and what the corporate strategy entails. And we often have the integrated activity planning, by the various departments working together to execute that strategy. Sometimes we observe these disconnects, and that's what we'll be focusing on. A lot of time, the focus of the corporate planning is direction, setting of direction, strategy, and resource allocation, whereas integrated activity planning would focus on all of the operational execution. There are different levels and ownership for both, and that's one of the reasons why we have these misalignment. In terms of data and integration, so you would see that for corporate plans, there are separate plans, per domain and integrated by leadership. And whereas for integrated business planning, you would have shared assumptions, common KPIs that are linked, across functions. It is very beneficial to combine both corporate planning and that integrated plan to be able to create long-term vision and turn it into a day-to-day coordinated reality. Next slide, please. So the few areas where misalignment occurs are captured in this slide before you. And one area is around strategic planning versus operations. Decisions are sometimes made when putting together a plan without considering some of the constraints at the operational levels. And key questions to ask would be realities, in infrastructure, what's the impact of weather, what is the workforce available to deliver on these plans. And a lot of times, some of the symptoms you see from misaligned positions around delays in projects, budget overruns, and of course, a few times you see pivoting in the strategy. Financial assumptions versus reality. A lot of times things shift, market shifts in the course of projects. And if there was not an integrated, planning before then you would see that certain perspectives would not have been considered. And what you would typically see would be negative return on investments. And then you would see that sometimes we have to cut back on some of the resources allocated to those projects midway. Another one for large organizations that have head office distant from the field base is a disjoint in the realities that they both see. While the local conditions may be somewhat different, the planning team and those at the HQ may not see through this, and all of this would throw up a lot of misalignment at the operational phase. Yes, we talked a bit about engineering and how we focus to put engineering solutions in place, but there are a couple of soft but real issues that we often consider second place, things like ESG, things like social risk, and we don't bring on these issues early on in planning, and as a result, you would see things showing up and leading to reputational damage, leading to regulatory blocks where the regulator refuses to approve because of some blind sites and all of that. Technology versus people. Yes, the oil and gas is a heavy technical industry, and we're usually eager to deploy solutions. But sometimes we don't even check if the persons who should use the users of these products would find the user interfaces friendly. Do they get their data in the shape and form that they require for other applications, or do they even have the basic training to take on these things? And then you often see that as a result, the company may not get its desired return on investment in the technology that's deployed. And we have a few other safety versus cost efficiency, and of course, things around procurement and capital projects where you go ahead to design and then the SCM folks are not on board early enough, and they will typically require that at the time, the standard timelines, the standard lead time is required to put those equipment in place. But at the point of, progressing with the plans, they realize that because of the peculiarities, they will need more time, and this can lead to cost overruns, and you have the project, schedule moving to the right. Next slide, please. Okay. And the consequence of this misalignment is value erosion for the organization. You would see that there would be inefficient resource allocation. In some departments, you have adequate staff, or even over, while some they don't have adequate staff, and then the entire plan, it's put in disarray. Capital allocation, equipment, and what have you. We have duplicated efforts, so you would typically would see that sometimes more than the required resources are expended, and this can lead to avoidable costs. Because the plans are static, they're not speaking to each other, and as such, the real-time changes are not visible. Decision may not be as agile as it should be. And of course, this would eventually lead to lower revenues being actualized, higher operational costs that will lead to, reduced EBITDA and profits, and ultimately shareholder value. Next slide. Okay, so a lot of times you cannot solve a problem without understanding what the root cause is. And we've identified in the course of these conversations some of these root cause of these disconnect organizational silos. And the remedy is to have cross-functional planning teams. Yes, for big organizations, they have corporate planning teams that are responsible on a day-to-day to ensure that there is integration across the different functions. But we also have smaller organizations, and it's imperative for these small organizations to have cross-functional and planning teams to ensure that these challenges are mitigated. The rolling forecasts have to involve all departments, and there has to be a continuous integration of the plan with the corporate objectives. We talked about technology gaps. There has to be unified data platforms where the different data is available to all the users of that data, and the solutions are correct to deliver the business plan. Lack of shared tools, KPIs and planning calendars is one other root cause of this disconnect. And solutions would be that corporate KPIs must be shared across the organization, and can even move on to the point where it goes to the departmental KPIs as well as the individual KPIs, and there is a sync all the way to the top. And that way, the performance of these individuals, of these departments, will eventually drive the performance of the organization. And we talked about biases that are being that usually show up in planning, in cost estimation and things like that. And it's important to have a prioritization matrix based on what is important to the organization: return on investment, value, risk, and what have you. And last but not the least, the cultural and governance misalignment, where people think that we've always done things this way, and people are afraid of losing influence. People are afraid of when they share their data and they say that the data is proprietary, things like that would require a lot of change management across the organization. But this cannot be achieved without leadership support and involvement. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'll be open to taking questions as we continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tammy, for that enlightenment on the disconnect we normally see between corporate planning and integrated planning. You actually showed where both of them are useful and the reasons why they are different. And then there's a common thread that goes through, because you've gone back to what Godwin had mentioned when he was talking about what's possible, which is the whole thing with this needs to start from the top, leadership driven, and actually followed. You mentioned something similar to what Sophia had spoken about in terms of the culture and change management required. That brings us to the end of the regular panel session. Now we're going to get into what we call blood on the floor, where we've actually, in our personal experiences, found where integrated planning could have been put up front, but was not, and most probably then led us to possible problems. And then we're looking at how we eventually recovered from those sessions. Just for a quick check with the audience, you won't be able to speak, but if you have questions, please put them in the chat room and we'll pick them up and answer them as we go through. We're going to spend about 8 to 10 minutes interacting with the panelists just to get a bit more direct experience from them. I will spend the remaining maybe 10 to 12 minutes answering questions from the audience if you have those. After that, we'll go into a demo session by an in-house expert on this tool, showing us what it can do, and we can then add what we think we may want it to do. All right, so we get into the panel discussion now, and because we started with Dotun, I'll also again start with Dotun, if you don't mind, just helping us get back to the question. So you mentioned in your foundation about the basics and foundations for IP, right? Integrated planning at its core is about advancing collaboration, sharing data, and synchronized decision-making across all functions. So in your career, can you recall a before and after scenario where the lack of IP upfront created chaos, and how during implementation and perhaps by application of IP, you then had a significant breakthrough and had a solution that you can share with us?
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, my fellow co-panelists and the audience. You said if I can share an experience, I can share multiple experiences. Well, I will go with one. So there was a time when we managed an EPC for a system package for a client, and the delivery expectations were very tight. In the before state, so I'll put it in before and after. So in the before state, we had engineering, procurement, and construction teams working in parallel, but not in sync. So engineering kept modifying drawings based on new client specifications, without real-time input from procurement on material lead times. And this was a project where we had serious long lead delivery items. The construction teams were left scrambling on site because they had a schedule to install. There was nothing to install because the teams were working in silo. Communication was very poor. So regardless, it was very chaotic. So we adopted integrated planning. So what we did was we implemented a shared project dashboard where everybody saw information in real time, right? So we didn't
so strong, these people.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so let me take that again. I hope you're following me because I got thrown off. So what we did was we implemented the dashboard, right, where everybody could see real-time information. So construction didn't need to wait for procurement to tell them when an item was coming. Everybody could see real-time what was happening. And we added to that bi-weekly cross-functional reviews on project timelines, deliverables, design, construction. And we prioritize data sharing. So as a result, decisions, of course, became faster. People were better informed. Procurement began flagging long lead items promptly. Engineering adapted, and construction got visibility very well in advance on what was coming, so they could plan, actual construction execution. So the breakthrough came. We delivered the skid ahead of schedule, a little bit above budget, but I mean, the client was happy because they could begin to save money, because this was an intervention to reduce cost. So us being able to deliver it on time was very good for the clients, even though we went a bit above budget. But the key learning point here was something that looked impossible 3 months prior, we were able to do, and that was only possible because we used IP, we used integrated planning strategies. And so that experience really underscores, how important integrated planning is in today's volatile, data-rich, high-speed business environment. So in closing, I would say this: silos are not just inefficient, they are dangerous. They could be very detrimental to the project. So yes, like I said, I have a lot of stories, but this is just one short one that I would like to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dotun, for that. I'm sure we've all learned what not to do next time from the story you shared. The important thing here, again, our careers are too short to make all the mistakes ourselves. So when we learn from other people's mistakes, it only helps us move better. We'll move over to Godwin now, just diving a bit deeper into the operational precision and how we drive that, right? So we've talked about integrated operation planning, and it comes with its own set of battles. And like Dotun just explained, it doesn't come easy. So Godwin, could you tell us well, again, you obviously would have many, but I mean, one of the big challenge you've personally faced in trying to achieve this integration, breaking down silos and getting people to work together, and what practical methodology or framework have you discovered that was applied as really most effective in overcoming this hurdle? If you share that experience with us, that would be great.
Thank you. So this was a particular example. I'll skip out the names of the particular organization, but we started with our regular business where this is an integrated chain where we have to export crude oil and we produce the oil from the stations. There was, at the beginning, no direct contact between the producers and the sellers. So the commercial folks who deals with this offtake, all these commercial agreements, plan ahead, schedules, they did their thing based on the previous histories. And the guys upstream who are the flow station guys, the production guys, and the field operation guys, working a bit closer with the subsurface guys, did their own thing to produce what is possible. And then in the middle, we have the community guys, the security people who also do their things and create the constraints in the whole chain. So with that, we had a measurable over $1 million in a particular year of demurrage because the tankers were either delayed or because the oil was not enough, or they had to reschedule their movement. All of this cost the corporate organization a valuable resource of income. What we did was to pull all these three parties together, essentially. So the guys who are the commercial folks, the guys who are the producers, which includes the subsurface guys who knows what is possible underneath so that the project people do not go on and fix and install equipment that are not relevant or oversized. Yeah, so those two groups working with the middle group, which is the security and the community licensing guys, because at the end of the day, the environment you work on is as important as the technical works, which Sophia mentioned quite well as the commercial folks who have to convert all our efforts into the bottom line. So pulling them together and physically having the asset manager attend, not delegate. He has to be physically present because we need a source of authority to gel all this together. And before you have that meeting, the planning folks, which is where I work on, has to also do their homework with pulling these functional plans into an integrated plan, which also shows readiness. So when we have that kind of fully physical here doesn't mean you can also do online, but I mean there must be a physical presence or online presence, if you like, of where the decision of what is going to be done in the plan is taken, and a decision without bias of what is not ready thrown out of the plan. So when we have those kind of very firm, very strong position, of course, challenges from the community and security to share exactly what they think is possible so that they know this threat, they know this challenge, they know this constraint, And that has to be part of this readiness plan. So when that is together, it's possible we now moved our effectiveness practically doubled. And in that year, the following year, we had a deferment of 200,000. We still had deferment, but moving from $1 million to 200,000 is a big step improvement. That's just one example.
Thank you very much for that, Godwin. It again shows a significant value that can be secured by doing integrated planning, especially in the example you gave, where normally, because things are sequential in nature, you hand over things stage by stage. So by the time you get to the last stage, a lot of value is lost already. So you've shown how, although there is a value chain and a flow, integrating everything from the beginning has the potential to significantly create value. Thank you for that. We will move over now to Sophia, and where we delve a bit into the actual discussions on capital projects, right? We talked about at the initial stages of capital, if I remember the exact percentage correctly, commit up to 70% of capital expenditure by the time you get to feed. So that's significant investment that's already on the table. So just thinking then, as you then look at the concept select and the feed stages, then how, in your experience, especially from your vantage point now as a group chief commercial officer, why are these initial stages so uniquely critical for integrated IP? And if you could use a high stakes scenario where IP, in this case, intellectual property, does not preclude you from telling us the story of how early integration would have drastically changed the outcome and what the final result was. Thank you, Sophia.
Right. Thank you, Leslie. That's a very important question in my view. So as I mentioned, up to 70% of not just capital expenditure, but actual life cycle costs are committed. So think of that as being locked in, right, in these early stages. Why so? Because that's where key project assumptions really get locked in. Like I said, you are determining scope, configuration, location, things that really matter here. So that's why these early stages are really crucial for integrated planning. So just like I think one of my other colleagues said, if we had to talk about examples over my 2-decade career, there's so many. I want to just speak to some pertinent ones, but also highlight how those lessons, right, have been used in, the projects that we now work on. But let me just segue a bit, because I think there's something very important to highlight here. And that is the fact that in this age of generative AI and all sorts of models, it's very easy to get a hold of data. It's very easy to build these dashboards. It's very easy to, build the tools. I won't say easy, but, it's doable to build the kind of tools that we use around integrated planning and think that that is all to it. And then many people go off and think, well, with all this AI, will I still have my job? And AI is replacing humans and so on. This is really the beauty of integrated planning, because it is fundamentally human-centric, right? So it really forces that cross-functional collaboration. It's not just about data, it's about dialogue. And you see that judgment layer is really irreversible. So I just wanted to kind of put that on the table and put that as food for thought for people to think about. So going into some of the examples, well, I've been fortunate to work on land, swamp, deep water assets, like I said, both in the front end and operations. But one that really sticks out to me was a big deep water project that we were working on. And the early engineering proposal sort of maximized throughput and ignored the phasing flexibility that were needed to match funding constraints. Now, I will say for those of us, and I think many of us on this panel have worked for, big oil firms, you're kind of spoiled when it comes to funding. It's not, something you really have to think about. And those kind of organizations tend to chase these big, beautiful projects, right? But kind of the world changed. And as far as investors are concerned, they will follow where the money goes. So you kind of saw the oil industry having to rethink how, it was investing money and what kind of returns it was getting. And that was a kind of, environment that we were trying to develop this massive field within. So that emphasis on the throughput, on, making this thing big and beautiful, and of course, it makes the economics look fantastic. Like I said, really ignored those funding constraints. And when you're looking at projects in a portfolio, it kind of looks like a lot of money, especially when other things are being considered. So fortunately, kind of got the message. And through integrated planning, we were then able to revisit the feed, revisit the model, and instead introduce a phased ramp up that was better aligned with the funding requirements and the cash flow projections and the offtake firms. So just that change and adjustment really made the project then on a funding basis, more practicable and more attractive. Another high stakes scenario where I saw early integration could have made a massive difference was in an upstream project with stranded gas. Now, I think, probably know a lot of these types of fields, but a technical plan was created that looked flawless, but there was no midstream solution that had been integrated or importantly priced. And eventually that meant that the economics fell apart. So if we had used an integrated planning framework early on at the concept stage, we could have aligned the commercial, the engineering, and the midstream assumptions, and we would have probably saved 2 years of wasted effort. Now, in contrast, when I think of how we are developing our flagship project, a modular refinery in Abia State, there we have used an integrated planning informed approach very early on so that the crude supply, the offtake contracts, the financing assumptions, and the engineering phasing are being modeled together. So when our lenders asked for proof of feedstock security, we had already aligned our upstream plans with the refinery requirements. When our off-takers requested delivery terms, our logistic model had already factored that into the plant's layout. So in short, integrated planning enables this synchronized decision-making where we don't have to retrofit solutions under pressure, and we can early on shape the project to be bankable, buildable, and operable from the first day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very enlightening one after story of how not to do a project, but you corrected that, and how to do a project, which you beautifully explained with your modular refinery. Thank you very much for that. We will then go to our last panelist for today, just to do a bit more into how do we break the disconnect between corporate and integrated planning. So for Chitemi, so implementing integrated corporate planning in this case would normally bubble up real-world barriers. You mentioned change resistance, data ownership issues. So from your experience, what would be some of the toughest battles you faced dealing with these kind of issues? And if you could give us some practical, maybe unconventional strategies that you have employed and we could adopt to overcome this kind of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie, and very good question there. And just like I mentioned in passing, yes, these barriers include change resistance and data ownership, and they are quite related. The reason why people would hold on to their data is because maybe perhaps fear of mistakes being discovered if they put out there, or fear that they would lose their influence. You always need to get to them when you want their data. And why this impacts planning is because you want to build models with these data sets, and your models are incomplete. And some of the output of these models are shared dashboards. And once you share these dashboards with incomplete data, it can lead to mistrust, and a whole lot of ripples from there on. And in my experience, one way that we've tried to drive this change is to change the narrative around data ownership, and instead we say that these are the people who keep this data are data custodians, right? Language shift, and as stewards, they are responsible for ensuring that this data is of quality. The data has integrity, but they're not just gatekeepers. What we push to have is to see that we have one single version of the truth across the organization, right? And of course, a lot of sensitization, a lot of workshops to show them what the impact of missing data can be, on the organization and on projects in a way that we're not, passing on blames. We're able to, identify early believers in the solutions proposed. And beyond just showing them slides, there should be people who would share their experiences, who would give testimonies, who would be ambassadors of these solutions. And we also identify people who are very resistant to this change, people, the Thomases, in those teams, and try to make them test the demos and ensure that the user interfaces meet their requirements, the outcomes, they are able to get the data in the shape and form that they want, and we're able to win them over. So those are some of the ways, in my experience, that we've been able to break these barriers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tetemi, for that quite interesting expose on how we can break some of these barriers. And having gone through that, I think maybe we should give time to the audience who's been listening to us, just to share with us any insights, what they've learned, areas where they require some additional clarification or questions. Do we have any question? I don't think any has come in so far, from what I can see on my dashboard. Any question from anybody, just type it into the chat box. We'll pick it up as we go through. But while we are waiting for the questions to come in, I guess maybe I just leave the floor open to our panelists. If there are some quick, maybe 1-2 minute stories you may want to add. I'll give an example. I think it was when Tetemi was talking earlier, you did bring in community, and a lot of times we don't think about them. And I think when Godwin was speaking now, he put community in between the production and the sale point. So I'll give you an example of something I saw that actually involved communities. There was a project that involved both land, well, basically swamp and offshore. So a field that was not too far from land. So the land in this case was swamp. So there had to be a swamp reclamation to build the base. And there was the offshore project that was going on. The land had a significant involvement with people from the community department team to acquire land, agree on what community infrastructure was to be built and attached to that. And this was being run, so community projects are run by community. And the engineering team was running the offshore facility. What they did not do was tie these two projects together. So when engineering completed their project and was ready for commissioning, the community issues are tied back, getting the land part sorted out, and that wasn't ready. And this resulted in a 4-month delay in a project that should have been doing about 80,000 barrels per day. So that's the value of value that was left on the table, possibly deferred just because this integration wasn't there. If somebody had tied the end of the community project to the end of the engineering project because they needed to be commissioned together, that loss would have been averted. So, like we said, there's so many stories one can think about when we think about IP and how we apply it in business. There's a question from Chike Mosu. Chike, thanks for this question. The question is, how do you use the outcomes, positive or negative, in an IP process, which, by the way, is dynamic, to shape corporate policy and or strategy? Is there a feedback loop that helps to improve the overall company strategy? That's a question. Can we leave this for Godwin to give it a try first? No,
Yes.
sorry, not Godwin. Tetemi, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, I could go
Okay,
ahead.
go ahead.
That we've done before. So one of
Okay.
the things we've done before is what we call the planning effectiveness reviews every month.
Okay.
So what we do there is to catalog all the past failures and all the past reasons why our plans were not effective or not implemented. And we use that to look at our risk register for the asset and say, what are we doing now, or who is doing something about this to fix or mitigate this challenge? So it's a learning loop that comes every month in a particular asset I worked on. And we pick that data and the action parties and also drive the closure of that before the next activity related to those failures are brought to the IAP for implementation. And that's one. In the modern world now, we now have AI that can pull a lot of data similar that have failed or caused failure, whether it's equipment reliability, whether it's security related, pipeline vandalization, heat maps of communities or intervention or weaknesses, and use all of that data into predicting the probability of this plan of success. And if the probability of success is still lower than 80, it means we still need to go back to work. So that's the kind of connection we've used with past record in calibrating our plan going forward, which is always open in a dashboard because part of a compelling, it's in a book of Sean, or the 4th discipline of execution. The 3rd leg was keep a compelling scoreboard, which helps everybody know how ready, how likely your plan will work in this IAP, even after it has been approved and challenged. So that's just an example.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any more questions from the audience. So I guess we will pivot now to the demo session. And while we're doing that, please, if anybody has additional questions or thoughts, please put them on the chat room, or if you prefer, maybe you can use the raise hand icon on the Zoom platform to attract our attention. Okay. And then we will, if you raise your hand, we'll give you access to be able to speak. So raise your hands if you need to, or type your question in the chat room. But in the meantime, let's move on to the demo session. If we go to the next slide. So to give us the demo today, it will be a hands-on IP developer and user, so the domain expert in this field, Chinedu Anyawu. Chinedu is a digital transformation engineer with AI and AI practitioner with a strong foundation in petroleum engineering. With over a decade of experience in production and data analytics roles at New Cross, Oriental Energy, and other leading firms, he has led efforts to integrate intelligent systems into legacy energy workflows. He holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in petroleum engineering. He's a postgraduate diploma in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and he is a certified project management professional. At MudoZangl, Chinedu spearheads digital transformation initiative using the noobyia platform, driving automation, data integration, and real-time insights to modernize planning and operations. His work on global AI projects focused on energy efficiency positions him at the intersection of engineering expertise and cutting-edge digital innovation. This speaks obviously to what Sophia had mentioned, that integrated planning is human-centric with a lot of digital expertise. So we welcome Chinedu to take us through them. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
Oh, let me just share my screen. Confirm you can all see my screen too.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks to all the panelists. It's been exciting and insightful discussions across board, talking about the importance of integrated planning. What I intend to do today is basically show our noobyia platform, one of the microservices being integrated planning. Having listened to all the discussions and all the pain points and pain points that have been pointed out from the various panelists and all the um, advantages of integrated planning, all the battle scars and all of that that you guys have talked about. What I intend to do is look at the recurring messages and see and show and demonstrate how this platform helps to achieve integrated planning and helps to have seamless execution excellence. And what I've noticed and what has become recurring is the need to have a unified planning platform. And that's what this platform is going to demonstrate, right? That need to have a platform that does planning from the corporate planning point of view down to your integrated activity plan, and having things that are being consistent in all of these. I could call Etim talked about that misalignment between corporate planning and integrated planning. So what you see on the screen here is the homepage or login page of the noobyia platform. It's an enterprise-based platform. I know Dotun talked about having a lot of projects where you have different vendors, you have different people that you want to share information and data with. Basically, this is a platform that is enterprise-wise. It doesn't need things like licenses where you need to say, okay, how many users do I need to get up on this platform? It's enterprise-wise and without any limit of the number of users. And it is a role-based platform. So I would just log on to the platform and I would speak to different pain points that I've been able to pick from the discussions we've had and from what all the panelists have talked about. First in all of this is communication. What I saw reoccurring is that we're looking at having to be able to communicate to all the stakeholders. You know, there are a lot of stakeholders involved in integrated planning. And how do you have that consistent communication or single source of truth where everyone is aligned and everyone knows what the source of data is and everyone knows how they are going to communicate. Dotun already talked about the cost savings they had when they implemented their integrated dashboard that could help them plan better. Basically, that speaks to transparency in integrated planning, which is very important. And that's the core and the root of this platform. So imagine where you have a corporate dashboard where you're able to see everything you've planned out to do from a corporate planning perspective, trickle down to your integrated activity plan, all showing on a real-time dashboard. Executives and all stakeholders are able to go in and have a feel of the activities that have been planned out for a corporate planning perspective, and also still be able to zoom in on all the activities that they have within the integrated activity planning space, where you look at your medium-term plan down to your quarterly plan in the short-term integrated activity planning space. So having a real-time dashboard where you're able to see all the activities that are being carried out within the organization, the impact of those activities and things like that. It's knowing that that data has been scrutinized, knowing that this is you're sure of the data, you're able to see that all the missing data have been taken care of, and you're having everybody on the same page in terms of communication. Now, this speaks to real-time communication, not necessarily reportings and PDF documents that are shared with emails. So this gives all the stakeholders that ability to have transparency and always being on top of their game as regards knowing all the activities happening within the organization and having everything on a real-time basis speaks to that. Another dashboard I would like to show basically is a resource dashboard. I know Dotun mentioned things around lead time, right? So let's imagine a situation where you have your lead time for all your resources for your activities and all you've planned out. Now we're looking at this not just on a project by project basis, but on a corporate wide basis, right? So you know all the resources you need for your various activities, and you're able to see where you have resource availability across board. So basically, you're looking at your time resources as well as your material resources. You're looking at, okay, you know your long lead items and things like that, and you know when those materials are available or not. So look at a scenario where all the functional planners, they've been able to detail what they intend to do, the resources they need to carry out the things they intend to do. And boom, they come into this dashboard. They're able to see if that resource is available or not, and able to know when that resource is going to be available. So this speaks to the value and the importance of having seamless communication across board within your corporate organizations, and ensuring that you're able to drive value and having everybody on the same page when it comes to communication. Like I said, this platform basically deals with planning. It's a one-stop shop for planning, from your corporate planning and business planning down to integrated activity planning. So imagine you have one platform where you're able to do everything, and everyone is deriving that value from the platform. Another thing I could hear when also Dr. was speaking, he talked about having different tools, planning tools, and how you're able to integrate these different tools. Basically, we know that there are a lot of planning tools around there, planning softwares around there. What this platform does, we are not necessarily trying to replicate planning tools. This platform is basically sitting above all of those, right? So we're not trying to change people from doing their schedules in good old Excel or doing it in Microsoft projects or Primavera P6, right? But then you have to think of the corporate planner. How are you able to pull plans from all these different tools to get one consolidated and integrated plan. I remember Godwin talking about the asset reference plan, where you've integrated all your functional plans, right? Now let's assume that that planning has been done in, for instance, a P6, right, or Excel, right? How is the corporate planner going to bring all the plans from all the functional departments and functional units into one integrated plan if they have planned, they have carried out those schedules and those planning in different planning softwares and planning tools? This solution helps you integrate that. You could build your schedules from it directly, where you bring in all your schedules and do your resource loading. But if you have people that are stuck on Excel and want to always do their planning in Excel, you could bring in your Excel Gantt into the solution. And basically everything you've created in Excel, all the tasks that you intend to carry out in Excel, you're able to see all of that in here. And then probably, of course, Excel, you're not able to show your dependencies. You start linking things around and showing the dependencies that fits around the different activities, right? But let's assume you have guys that really do their planning in MX projects, right? You could still bring an MX project file in here. And within that MX project file, the entire dependencies that sits within the organizations, be it finish to start, start to finish, and all of those dependencies are respected and maintained when it's brought into this platform. So you could do your planning MS projects and you're able to pull this in here onto this platform, and you're able to do your resource loading and things around that based on the available resources that sits within the corporate organization. People may, of course, I know a lot of EPC folks like to do their planning in Primavera P6. P6 is not excluded in here. You could still bring in those schedules from P6, and all the dependencies are maintained, right? And basically, you're now able to resource load your plans based on the corporate resources that sits within the company, as well as time and material resources, all accounted for, right? So this platform, integration of tools, um, you're not trying to change the way people work, right? You're just trying to have a solution that sits above all these planning tools, and being able to integrate and drive value across your organizations. And of course, if you do have enterprise P6, you're able to pull and push changes from this platform to what you have within your enterprise P6. Now, the corporate planner is pulling this together. Is bringing a fixed integrated plan. It could be an asset reference plan. How do you see the intricacies? How do you see things around the resources that sits within a lot of these integrated plans, right? So basically within this platform, you're able to pull those various individual schedules, right, from the various functional plans, and you're able to pull it into one seamless plan that the organization will be using. And you're able to sit down with your various focal points and see where things may fall through the cracks. So you're able to see your resources. You're able to see where you have resource overloads. In the red here, you see where you have oversubscribed resources, and things that are blue here, you see where the resources are just sufficient, right? So with these, you're able to plan your resources properly. You're able to do some resource leveling. You're able to see areas where you need to bring in more resources. You're able to move things around and come up with that one fixed plan where everyone and all the stakeholders are aligned. Um, uh, um, Godwin talked about bringing the community folks in, bringing the subsurface folks in, so bringing all the parties. So let's assume all these parties do have their functional plans, and you're able to pull all of this together. You're able to see all the dependencies that sit across different plans, and you're able to see where you need to do some resource leveling within that. And once this is frozen, you're able to freeze this, and those changes that you're going to make, of course, you do need to have how you manage your change, a management of change process. So once that single asset reference plan, sorry, has been updated and accepted, you do have some approval logs where the various stakeholders and the various focal points are able to get some bit of approvals from their management or from their line, depending on how things have changed. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to spot this well at this date, but given that the location is not going to be ready, what are we going to do? Are we good with that? Can we shift it? And then going back to the management on the various departments, just to ensure that everyone is aligned and everyone agrees with what should be done, and then ensuring that that approval is attained. So that way you have the visibility. I know Etim has talked about having that visibility of top management and all of that. So with this, having a line of sight in terms of approval, that gives you that visibility, that you have that top-down approach in having everyone agreeing and approving a lot of these changes before they are able to come to effect and take effect. Another thing I could hear were things around risk, knowing the importance of risk within our planning framework. So basically, that's why we do have a risk model, right? So basically, we're going beyond detailing your plan on a schedule basis and resource basis to the point where you sit down and detail what the risks are, right? So what are the risks that sit within this plan? And in here, you're able to maintain a proper risk register, right? So within this risk register, you're able to do some bit of qualitative risk analysis, where you're able to identify the risks that sits within your various activities, assign those risks to action owners, risk owners, and you're able to state things around the category of that risk and the likelihood of that risk occurring, right? And you have a risk metrics that shows you the risk scores that are automatically calculated within this platform, right? And basically, you have the ability to get mitigative measures. So let's say you have a way of mitigating this risk. You could detail that mitigative measures in here, and that is cascaded into a knowledge base where you're able to manage things around unstructured data and all of those. Another thing we do have is a SWOT analysis. So basically, when you're doing a lot of integration, right? It's always good. I know Sophia talked about identifying when they decided to go through an integrated planning approach and things like that. A lot of it will always speak to what are the strengths that sit within your organization, and what do you see as the strength, what do you see as the threat, what do you see as the opportunities. Dotun talked about the tariffs and all of that. Those could be risks that would have been captured within your risk register. And you could also say, okay, what are the strengths we have to be able to ensure that we could pull this out given the threats and the weaknesses, and how do we combine a lot of these strengths and opportunities to come up with growth strategies within our individual projects, and looking at it on a corporate level. So imagine you have a lot of these being done on a project by project basis. And with this enterprise solution, you're able to pull all of these on a corporate basis. So say you're doing your quarterly plan, and you're executing your Q1 STIAP, and you want to see all the risks that sits within all the activities you want to carry out. We have a dashboard which I can show that shows you all of that. In high level, you're able to detail all your risks that sits, all the SWOT, the strengths, opportunities, and all of that that sits within the organization. And with this platform, you're able to achieve this. Um, I had things regarding um, execution excellence, right? In the sense that you want to execute something. Dr. Godwin talked about readiness. Um, do you have everything ready in terms of the different in terms of the different requirements that you want to carry out, right? Have you ticked all your boxes? So let's say you're going into drill, uh, just like Leslie talked about, the is the land ready? Are you done with all you need to do to carry this out? And then you come and realize that everything is ready, but community, you missed that out, right? So with this, for every activity, you're able to capture what the key requirements are. You're able to capture the various tasks that sits within that activity, and you can sit with your focal points, and you're able to see what's the status? What's our readiness status? Are we ready to go? Are we behind the schedule? Are there things we need to talk about, right? So with this traffic light, you're able to see all the requirements required for all your activities. You're able to see where you lie in terms of readiness. You're able to communicate what issues you have. So for instance, you need some critical spares. There are long lead items. We haven't procured those. You could put in your commentary, and everyone as an integrated functional team within things around your, say, a bi-weekly meeting. You could sit down and say, look at the status of all the activities, and you could see where things will definitely be falling through the cracks and things like that. And in here, each of the focal points can give you status updates, and you're able to update a lot of your tasks real time and able to get that feedback from all the focal points regarding the requirements and the tasks that need to be carried out for those various activities at different execution points. And this, a lot of our clients see very valuable because it helps drive excellence in their execution of a lot of their activities and their projects. Last but not the least, it's what we call the task and comply. In here, what we try to do is go the extra mile, right? Not just looking at schedules and resource loading those schedules, but having action parties that would be responsible for those schedules. I don't know if it was Leslie that mentioned he was supposed to be in two different places at the same time, right? And he didn't know how he was going to manage that. Let's assume that all these activities had resources and had action parties. So if Leslie was aware that I have to be in two places at the same time, that would be reflected in his tasks, right? So you have a task tracker that once you log on to that task tracker, all the activities, all the tasks that require your attention, that you have been pinned as an action party, you're able to see them. You're able to see when they are starting, you're able to see the due dates and all of those. So he would have been able to having this say, oh no, I can't be here, I can't be here, and discuss properly with the focal point upfront, not getting to the point where that is supposed to happen. So this is more or less a game changer, right? So imagine a task that has to do with, let's say you need an NUPRC permit, right, to drill a well. And that is one of the requirements for one of these wells you want to drill. And someone has been given that responsibility, right? And of course, it's not just ticking that, oh, this task has been completed. You, of course, need to have the permit. And this is evidence-based task tracking. You're able to upload a document that shows, okay, this task has been completed and show that, oh, yes, you have closed this task. And let's say that permit has been uploaded and it then sits within the knowledge base where unstructured data is managed. And the focal point is able to see that, okay, this task has been completed and there's an evidence to show when required or if required that this task has been completed. So in a nutshell, this is just to show the value of this platform. It's more or less a unified planning platform. There are a lot of features and more functionalities, but I just decided to focus on most of the things I had, those recurring pain points, and just to show how this platform helps you achieve excellence in planning and helps you have an enterprise and unified platform where you have a one-stop shop for everything planning. So I think I'll stop here, except if there are questions, I'm happy to take those. Thank you.
Thank you, Chinedu. You've definitely done justice to that introduction as a domain expert. You managed to weave all our different challenges into how this can solve it. You just solved my problem of having to be in two different radicines at the same time. Thank you very much for that. Very enlightening. Now we get to the more open question and answers. There are two questions that have been dropped in the questions and answers chat room. I'll just call out the questions, and any of the panelists who wants to answer, please just go ahead. The first question is from Kelechi Amadi. He didn't specify which company he works for, so I would crave the indulgence of anybody who wants to ask questions. Please just add where you're asking from so we get a feel for the interest and how to help you. The question is, how effective are our strategic, financial, and operational plans aligned to drive unified decision-making and measurable business outcomes? Any of the panelists, you want to go? How effective are our strategic, financial, and operational plans aligned to unified decision-making and measurable business outcomes?
Well, if it's all right, I could maybe take a stab at this. So thank you for the question, Kelechi. It's a bit generic because when you say our, I think you mean, maybe collectively as an industry or, in the places we work. And definitely some people will be better at this than others. Some people will be using, a real strategic, even tactical approach, like some of the tool we've seen demonstrated. But let me just say that when strategic, financial, and operational plans are aligned, the result would be a step change in decision-making quality and business performance. Now, as I've said, in most organizations, these plans, unfortunately, are developed in isolation or, updated at different cadences, which weakens execution and slows down decision-making. So this is where integrated planning creates real value because that alignment improves unified decision-making. So if you break it down, your strategic plans are there to set a direction, right? But they need translation. The strategy often defines what the organization wants to achieve, but it needs the financial feasibility and the operational clarity to make that happen. Then your financial plans will test viability. They will turn strategic aspirations into numbers, budgets, funding sources, and so on. And this is where integrated planning can link cost, funding timelines, and cash flow to strategic milestones. Thirdly, your operational plans will bring reality. So that determines the how, how is this going to work, the resourcing, the logistics, the supply chain. So without that strategy and finance alignment, operational plans can overpromise or underdeliver and essentially waste resources. So you really want to think of integrated planning as the transaction layer, or the glue that and ensures that those strategic choices are stress tested, that financial models are grounded in delivery logic and assumptions, and that operational plans are actually aligned with long-term value creation. Without that alignment, it's mayhem. You get projects getting funded that don't support strategic goals. You have the team wasting time on activities that will not improve outcomes. You have CFOs cutting budgets without understanding the delivery impact. And the boards will question the credibility of forecasts and actually maybe even lose confidence in leadership. So in summary, like I said, the strategy is setting direction, finance is funding the journey, operation is steering the vehicle, and think of the integrated planning as ensuring that they're all following in the same roadmap. So, that, I mean, if you think about it in that frame, then it helps to see how, these various elements should be working together. These plans should be working together to achieve, the common business goals. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I think that justice to that question. And Kelechi, you can reach out to us again if you require more information. The next question, and that's the last question we have, is from Utomobon Utuk. He says, or she says, not sure, how can a young professional go about suggesting to his organization that has been operating in silos, different business units, and do not even share resources to adopt IP, integrated planning, not just corporate planning, but down to the level of buying spares and sharing? If one unit has this in its warehouse and they save another business time that would have been spent waiting for long lead spares. I think, Dotun, you want to take this? Setting the framework for
Okay.
IP.
Yeah, so I think one of the easiest ways to implement or get buy-in into integrated planning is to look at it in silos, right? So you could do a pilot project just to demonstrate the efficacy of integrated planning to get management buy-in. So you can start small, start with something where you can measure deliverables very quickly, right? Start with a small team, and of course, document the lessons learned throughout the process. So that approach, if you present the results to management, can tip the scale in getting them to buy in. Everybody wants to be efficient, right? Everybody wants to do things better. So the ability to be able to demonstrate that in a practical sense, right, will help you better convince management, right? So I think that's the best way to do it. Do it small, then you can scale up, get management buy-in by showing them results, the timeline, how long it took to get things up and running, and also show the efficiency in operations already. Anybody that sees that, will be able to make an informed decision that this is the way to go.
Thank you very much for that. And I don't think we have any more questions. So we're actually approaching the end of our time for this webinar. So most probably it's time to wrap up. All right, so we come to the end of this second in the deep dive series from MudoZangl's Deep Dive Series, where we've talked about integrated planning, and we've shared experiences from a distinguished panel. Thank you all panelists for your time. I want to extend the gratitude of the MudoZangl team to the speakers, panelists, and especially to all the audience who've engaged with us during this session. Today, we've clarified the foundational concepts of integrated planning and its strategic role in solving fundamental issues, particularly in complex industries like oil and gas and the major EPC projects. We have seen from the demo and the discussion how MudoZangl's IP solution directly tackles these challenges and help us solve issues with siloed planning, avoid project delays, and democratize data so data is available on a single pane of glass. The quantifiable results, especially how the noobyia platform compresses project timelines, reduces cost, and enables earlier revenue realization, has been demonstrated, and this is truly impressive. We also listened to real-life examples and barriers and how adoption of IP practices have helped overcome some of these issues through transparency that resulted in measurable ROIs and the stepwise integration of technology. MudoZangl believes that while change management is important, the core challenge often lies in the absence of the right tools to enable meaningful change, which integrated planning aims to provide. This webinar has aimed not only to educate us and empower us with the concrete evidence and practical strategies to drive meaningful changes and unlock significant value within our own operational environments, but also teaches us where to go and how to start. We therefore encourage you to explore how integrated planning can transform your own project delivery within your little team and in your overall organization to unleash efficiency. With that, I want to thank all of you for joining us and thank all the panelists again for your very insightful discussions. I definitely learned a lot. And like I said, the noobyia platform solved my recent challenge. And I'm very sure it will do the same for most of us. So thank you all for joining. And we look forward to seeing you all at future MudoZangl events. Thank you all.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you so
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Leslie.
everyone.
Thanks, Sophia. Thanks, everyone.
Panelists.
Thank you, everyone.
Attendees.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Please be sure to follow us on MudoZangl on LinkedIn, where follow us, like, comment on the posts, and if you have thoughts, share them as well. And we hope to see you for the third episode, which I promise is going to be outstanding, sometime in September. So please stay tuned to our channels. We'll keep expanding those channels to other platforms. So stay with us. Thank you to the panelists. Great contributions overall. Thank you. So we'll just stay online till everyone departs. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. There'll be a link to the recording, which we will share soon. So please look out for that. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Yes, Evelyn, the recordings will be available. The recording to the link, I'm sorry, to the recording will be available. So please stay tuned to the MudoZangl LinkedIn channel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. If you still want to chat or say something in the chat box, please let us know. We're still here for another 5 minutes. Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for joining. In 2 minutes, we'll be closing the webinar. Thank you, Taleola, which is, by the way, a very beautiful name. Thank you. Okay, so we've come to the end. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our attendees. Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon and rest of the day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.